Hi, and welcome to Coffee Cup Stories with Jack. Today's coffee cup has no words on it, no names, no logos. It's just a coffee cup with a Gary Larson Far Side cartoon on it. It was one of my favorites. And this story is about when I had just gotten out of the Army. I was completely out of work. Sandra was working for a Christian school, teaching first grade, making $10,000 or $12,000 a year. I was going to school on the GI Bill. So the Army was sending me a little bit of money, not a lot. And I was out of work after I got out of the Army for about 4 or 5 months. But then I got a cooperative education job, a co op job, where you worked for a semester and then you went to school for a semester. And you could continue working at part time during the semester you went to school. And you could continue going to school part time while you worked full time. Everybody's happy. I'm making money. Bills are getting paid. It was great. I worked for the Army Missile Command, which no longer exists. It merged back in the 90s with the Army Aviation Command. So this is out on Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the late 80s. This is back when the Soviet Union still existed, when the Russians really were still coming, and everything we did was based on what do the Russians do, what do the Russians have, what do the Russians know, what are the Russians intending. And that was my area of expertise at the time. I had just gotten out of the Army, where I was in military intelligence. I was a Russian area specialist, Soviet Union. So I got a job with the Army Missile Command. I worked for the Advanced Systems Concepts Office. And their goal in life was to look out 20, 30 years, see what might be happening technologically so that they could start coming up with ideas about what kinds of weapons the Army needed to develop in our next generation. And so when they found out that I was getting out, that I was, recently from military intelligence and I had all these super secret clearances at the time, they thought that would be just ideal. So my job was to go over and talk to the intelligence agency that specialized in missiles, rockets and missiles, the Space and Missile Intelligence Agency. So I would go over, because I had the right clearances, I'd go over, I could go in the building, go down to the basement, talk to the intelligence analysts and see what was going on, see what the Russians were about to do or doing right now, or they thought could be doing, soon and sometime in the future. Go back over to Army Missile Command and say to my boss, hey, this is happening. Right? Well, then they would have discussions and they would talk about what kinds of things they needed to do to respond to that. Well, this was a great job for me. They loved me. I loved them. It was a great situation. Everything about it was wonderful. I was there a couple of years before I decided that I needed to start making actual money, and so I took a full-time job and got my degrees part-time. And this is the place where the famous story of "no kidding, Jack can't draw" happened. The division secretary, Frida, she gave me this on birthday or Christmas or something. I don't remember. Well, we were talking one day about stuff, and I mentioned that I literally cannot draw. Can't do it. Can't do it. It cannot be done. Multiple people have tried to teach me to draw, and they have all failed. Well, Frida was offended, offended by the concept that she couldn't teach someone how to draw because it's so simple. She said, "I can teach you how to draw. Anybody can learn." Okay. So we made the commitment. We were going to meet together twice a week at lunch. Bring in your lunch and we'll work for an hour on how to draw. Great, because if I can learn to draw, this will be better. So, first day, we sit down together and she gives me a pencil and some paper and she says, "Okay, do this, draw a straight line, draw a circle. We're gonna draw, I don't know, a dog or something. So draw a circle. No, draw a circle. No, draw a circle." Well, see, I'd been down this road many, many times before. All these anybody can learn to draw things, they all depend on you already being able to draw a straight line, draw a circle, draw a triangle. Well, if I could do any of that stuff, we wouldn't be here. So we worked back and forth for about 15 minutes, and Frida said, "No, no, you're right. You literally cannot learn to draw. It's impossible. You cannot be taught." I said, "That's what I said." So, we became friends, and Frida would give me some paintings. She would do a painting. There was one of a falcon, I think, that I kept for years and years. A lovely girl. Liked her a lot, but even Frida can't teach me how to draw.